So, hello and welcome to the Slackware on vlog. This is season 3, episode 21. And with us today is Brent, one of the Slackware contributors and contributors to Slackware ARM. Hello, Brent.
Hello.
It's been quite some time since Brent was on the vlog, and I was kind of wondering, Brent, whether the Slackware initiation ceremony that sort of centers around lemons had sort of got the better of you, and but you're back, freshly waxed.
Yeah, right.
And so yeah, it's been quite some time since Brent's been around. But you've picked up what you were working on before, which was the well, quite a few things actually. Some of which were the HoneyComb, or rather support for the, what's the name of, who makes the HoneyComb again?
Solid Run.
Solid Run. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid Run. And where did I put the? Because I've made a sort of mini roadmap, and the question is, where did I put it? Oh, there it is. I should probably put that on the main website, actually. Or maybe I did. Let's see. Oh yeah, I did. I know my own website really well, evidently. Right, yeah. So there is actually a roadmap linked directly off the main link there. Yeah, I've got a window behind here actually, which I need to do as well for something else that I'm. Yes, it's an Ubuntu image running in VMware. I need to resize the disk because I'm doing something for work and I realised I got the disk size wrong, so I need to resize it. Actually, should we just digress and resize the disk anyway?
Yeah.
Let's do it. This is an Ubuntu box, so it's a freshly booted box, and remember how to do this is, so you see that the disk, can you actually read that? Because it's probably really small. Is it the font? Yeah, it's the font, isn't it? So it's probably make it like 20 or something like that. Probably might be able to read it then. Right, cool. So yeah, so there's the disk is the one I want to resize. It's actually now 40 gigs, but the partition on it is only 15 gigs, and that's the one there that I need to be 40. So if I remember rightly, all you really need to do is delete the partition that you want to resize, which in my case is this one. And you need to make sure that the start address is the same. So if I delete, which it usually is if you just delete it. So if you delete partition 3, new partition 3, yes, yes, yes. It wasn't marked bootable or anything, was it? So the start address is the same, ends in 248. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's find out, right? If it breaks, it doesn't matter. It's cloned from a template anyway, so I can trash it if it gets broken. And then do I need to because it's under a PV display, isn't it? So it's under a LV display. I don't know. Ooh, did I break it all? Because yeah, that's the thing. I thought it. Why is that not? It should display everything if it's in there, actually.
Yeah, you just delete the partition and then you just recreate it. And as long as it's at the same starting block, it should be fine.
Oh, it might be because it's mounted as well. That could be why, actually. Could be. No, just reboot it to a hand. Yeah, it's fine. Doesn't matter. These machines boot incredibly quickly on the VMware cluster that it's running on. It's funny actually. This I really don't like rebooting Unix boxes. It's kind of like the antithesis of everything that you really don't want to do. But it really doesn't matter because it's so fast and it's not actually, the machine's not actually currently doing anything. But it got me thinking though about Linux distributions, because I couldn't care less that this is an Ubuntu box. It's literally, in my case, it's going to be a master node for a Kubernetes cluster. I couldn't care less about the operating system on it. at all. Like it's just a disposable VM that has a particular task or particular role, and that's it. Couldn't care less about it. It's nothing. It's not like it's like the olden days when I used to actually care about how the operating system was and what was where and exactly how it was configured, and the box had a name. Had its little persona, a personified thing. It just.
I used to be that way when I ran Debian, but now I just kind of pick whatever works best. Use the best tool for the job, you know.
You can see it looks like I broke it there. Look, this is the boot console for it. Oh well, that's fine.
Yeah, it's not happy.
I'm pretty certain I've done this before in Slackware, and I never had any issues with that. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll just reclone it.
It was probably because the partition was mounted, but
yeah, probably. I mean, it probably could fix it, but it's not worth it. I'll just respin it from another one. So there you go. That's how not to resize your Ubuntu box. Right. Let's. If it was one of my actual Slackware boxes that I cared about, I would have actually really not done that. But. So back onto the ARM stuff. Yeah, so there's this roadmap. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah, I looked at it yesterday.
Oh, all right then. Cool.
Yeah.
I can probably tick some of these things off actually. So there's the HoneyComb stuff. We can talk about that today. What's this about? Oh, this is documentation. Perhaps we'll talk about that as well, because a few of the guys, I think, since you've been away, a few of the guys in the community have started working on or started looking at and made progress actually. There's one guy in particular whose name escapes me, which without looking at Linux questions, they started working on the Rock
5 or something.
5 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it made some good progress there, but I think it's stalled, really waiting on the Linux kernel, or rather the support for that hardware model to be in the upstream kernel. But yeah, we can this kind of stuff. I can start working on this on the integration guide, and I made quite a concerted effort to do a brain dump into the Linux questions forum on one of the threads about how to go about or how to approach integrating a new hardware model, and with the idea that I could just pick off everything that I wrote and put it into a document later. That's the idea anyway. In addition to the stuff I've already documented, but the stuff I've already documented for this is kind of a little bit just notes kind of stapled together in a way, but it's not particularly not that well organized at the moment. But I mean, the idea of the project though, for those of you who are listening, is that the idea really is at this point in time, and it has been since since I started working on the AH64 port, is to enable other people to be able to enable other people to help contribute what I call hardware model support into Slackware AH64, because the way it was in Slackware ARM 32, as I'll now retroactively call it, is well, actually, no. For the Slackware ARM 15 release, actually, it's the same design pretty much as Slackware AH64, because I changed it all. But prior to that, it really was just me adding in support for whatever I found that was interesting to me, and it wasn't particularly. It wasn't scalable at all. And when you boot it, you'd end up with loads of error messages because it was trying to load modules for other hardware models and stuff like that. And yeah, it just wasn't really scalable. So I've completely changed the design, and with the intention of more easily enabling other people to contribute hardware model support, which essentially means some of the stuff that we'll look at today, like knowing, kind of providing kernel module loader scripts, which essentially just lists of kernel modules for that particular hardware model, so that when the system boots, it loads the correct set of hardware models, it's correct set of kernel modules for that hardware to bring it up, so that from a cold boot, which is not the same as how we do it in x86, because there you can probe the BIOS or whatever they have these days, and find out what's the landscape look like, and then load the appropriate set of modules. But you can't do that in ARM because it doesn't have such a facility. So you need to front load it, and that's how I've designed it. So the idea again really is to kind of make it easier for other people who are interested in the community to become what I call hardware model custodians, which essentially just means that you help do some of the work or most of the work to make Slackware run on this other bit of on this other hardware model, this other piece of hardware that you can buy, because there are many of them, and they're similar, but they always need tweaking, and there's always something specific that needs to be done. So that's the idea behind the project. And then there'll be there's already 3 officially supported hardware models, which are the Rock Pro 64, the Pinebook Pro, and the Raspberry Pi 4, and maybe the Raspberry Pi 3 if the support still works. I don't know. That's kind of, anyways, that's kind of how that's the sort of project's the sort of trajectory of the project at the moment. That's how I envision it. And what else? The I was going to do this, but this all-in-one installer stuff. But Patrick says that there's kind of already something for x86 where it already works. Oh, I know what it was. Yes, it already works on. We already have bootable USB images for UEFI machines, or machines with UEFI firmware. So, yeah. But we don't provide USB sticks with a full image on like we do for ARX64. But I might look at that again at some point in the future, but I don't have time at the moment. And then sort of, what is this? Installer. Oh yeah, I need to at some point. Well, basically, if people are interested in, if the community becomes, if there's more people, if there's a sort of critical mass in a community that want to help, bring Slackware onto other hardware models and maintain it, or maintain that piece of it, then I can look at upstreaming and open sourcing the installer build system for ARM. But I need to do quite a bit of work on that because I've got quite a few patches. I've merged many of them already, actually, upstream to Patrick a few months ago. But I still need to actually do some work on the installer build script, or with the installer build script, to make it a lot easier. Because at the moment I've kind of wrapped the builds, I've wrapped everything up in like layers of old stuff on top of old stuff. So I need to kind of unpick it all and put it back together, and then open source it. But I just haven't had the time to do that at the moment. It's not a priority. Don't know what that's. Oh yeah, that's the same thing really. What is this? Package only. Oh yeah, I don't think I'm gonna. Oh no, I've done it already. Oh, that was a feature. Oh yeah, I did that. So those are all the ones that are complete. This one, don't think I'll do that one. This one, probably, I don't think I really need to do this either. I contemplate, but basically this one is about including a tool within the OS to flash the bootloaders of supported hardware models. In this case, just the Rock Pro 64.
Yeah. There's already a tool in the it's called Flash Copy or something like that. You can write.
Is this here? I already wrote one. It's here. So I've already written it. It's just that it's outside of the OS. But the thing is, I don't really plan on upgrading U-boot very often anyway. So it's not really an issue. So I really need to. I mean, the thing is, it works on the supported operating system. So unless there's a really good reason to upgrade it, then generally it's just not worth. It's not worth it really. Pine phone, yeah. Oh, you bought a Pine phone, didn't you?
Yeah.
How's that? Are you still using it?
I am. I had it running lots of different things, but there's some things that don't work completely. Like you can text message, but SMS doesn't work, and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like just like a toy now. It's not really going to replace my cell yet. So. I could probably do some stuff to make it work. I just haven't gotten around to it. But
right, yeah, I don't really see the point in putting Slackware on that kind of device. To me, it's not. No. It's not. It's just not. Slackware is not for that. that target.
No, you'd
isn't.
have to build like KDE Mobile or whatever they have out there.
Yeah, it really isn't worth it. That isn't the point of Slackware.
Yeah,
It doesn't
no,
make
yeah.
any sense to me. The what's this? Oh yes, this was for the Raspberry Pi. The idea was that if the EEPROM firmware was out of date, then offer in the installer to do it. But I might do that, but probably not at the moment. Oh, that's right. These are just ideas that I had. Oh yes, I need to. There was one. So since I switched to the all-in-one installers, which are the sort of 4 or 5 gigabyte images that contain all of that contain the Slackware installation media, i.e., all of the packages. There was only one person that asked to see where the original, smaller, that 300 megabyte installers were, but that you had to install over NFS or from some other remote source tree. And I was going to potentially document the other method of doing that, or the older method, but don't really see the point in that actually. I mean, because the only reason I think you'd want to do that generally is if you're using a Raspberry Pi and you really want to install, or well, perhaps some of the other hardware models as well, and you wanted to put the OS on the SD card, which is also which also has the boot partition on it. Well, it's the SD card is where the system boots from. That's how we've designed it for the supported hardware models. Which, incidentally, there is a reason for it. That's because the reason why it's designed that the system boots off the SD card is because it enables you to have the operating system on pretty much really anything. Because as long as because the thing is that the bootloader has the U-boot bootloader has a very finite set of addressable hardware. In other words, it doesn't know that much about, or it may in some cases anything about just random PCI cards that you happen to have bought off Amazon, like I did. It doesn't know about those things, or if it did, it would be incredibly slow and it may not be reliable. And so, however, it does know how to boot very reliably off SD cards, and so that booting the OS initially off or loading it off of an SD card partition, and then within the operating system initial RAM disk, loading up the appropriate hardware, the drivers for the hardware, you can then load or boot the OS off of the PCI card or something like that. So that's the reason why we've designed it this way. And I don't recommend anybody putting the OS on an SD card. It's just a really bad idea. Because they die quite quickly. Yeah. Cool. Oh, there's a few other things on the Pinebook Pro that I've collected here, like some of the video. I don't know if this is still. Oh, right. Okay. Right. So So I'm kind of waiting for Linux 6.2. Okay. Well, at the moment, though, I think apart from suspend and a few other things, and the sound's still pretty poor, but I don't really know if that's fixable on the Pinebook Pro. It works really well. I've been using it many times. The Pinebook Pro. So I'm quite pleased with that.
Yeah, I think I have suspend working. I just close the lid and it goes to sleep, but hibernation doesn't work right away.
So. Oh, suspend does. Yes, it does go to sleep, but yeah, it doesn't.
The hibernate like wakes up, but boots it normal, and you get errors on the disk and stuff. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I did find actually on the Pinebook Pro and on the Rock Pro 64 that with KDE, it by default I think it suspends it after a certain period of time, and it wouldn't come back up properly. I think it just didn't seem to bring the disk. The disk just seemed to have disappeared.
Rock Pro doesn't. It can't do any suspend or hibernate. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So inside of the installation guides for those two, I've documented, how to configure KDE to disable that feature until it works properly. And the Raspberry Pi 4, as you probably know, is that I decided eventually to create Raspberry Pi kernel packages, really just to see, does it actually fix anything? And yes, it does. There's a significant difference between the Raspberry Pi kernel and the Linus Torvalds kernel, which is a bit sad. It really isn't supposed to be that way. But
Yeah.
the good news is, though, is that all of the tooling I developed to build these kernels now can be used to build other vendors' kernels for other hardware models. So actually, it turned out well that I've created a set of tools that can be used to help with other, help onboard other hardware models in the future. So that was a silver lining in that. So originally, I was just going to make a tool that was going to build the Raspberry Pi kernel, but I thought, no, this could do more, I reckon. So that's what. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of where we are in the roadmap. So you have given me a whole bunch of like 1.5 gigabytes of stuff for the there it is. Okay, so yeah, you've given me a whole bunch of stuff here, and where should I start?
Did you recently download all that, or was it older?
I downloaded it yesterday.
Okay, yeah.
After you told me.
The HoneyComb directory, you want to go to the UEFI subdirectory. Yeah. And then there's pretty much, you just drop the SD cards.build file into the platform directory, and all that stuff goes, all the firmware. I mean, you can just literally boot, you can make an SD image, and the it'll just boot the HoneyComb. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and the grub stuff doesn't completely work yet, but if that config file is copied into the SD card, it will boot the Slackware installer. So.
What is this? Oh, I see. This is just you've just.
Yeah, it's all it is in that file is the I added a line to, yeah.
So. Oh, okay. So actually, the only thing I need is that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh. Well, okay.
And you should be able to build one right off. Yep.
Right. So I'm bang that down the end there.
Yeah, and then add the assets into.
So where?
So you see the SD cards that build as functions, and the grub.pfg. Put those into the platform directory, and let's see. Let me look at my file tree.
It's been so long since I actually did this stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the name of everything is.
2021. Okay, February 2021. Yeah, it's been a while since I wrote. Can't believe it's been already. Can't believe it took that long.
Yeah, so you want to put it in the platform directory. Yeah.
Okay.
And make. Yeah. There you go. I couldn't remember the name of it. It's been so long.
Right, here we go. Format. This is why I documented everything so extensively when I did it, because I knew I wouldn't remember what it was in the future. So output asset, chipset, sock name, and then the X. Okay. So.
Yeah, it works. I tried it many times. But I don't know.
Oh yes, generic. And that's the X Linux config. Right. So basically, I need to make a directory called that in here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Or whatever you want. You can then change it to later on, but.
No, this is where it will go. So, okay, and then
Copy, yes, that, and just make sure you rename it to just sdcards.build.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But literally, that's like all you need besides the firmware from SolidRun for UEFI.
Okay.
Oh, and make sure you copy the grub file too. Yeah.
So what's in here?
Just I broke everything out and just kind of made it so that I could build the SD card.
Oh, hang on. Is that?
That's the wrong file.
That's not right. Have I done? Oh. Okay. Oh, I thought I'd done it right. Obviously not. No, I thought I had, yeah, build functions. No? Should be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one that I did though, isn't it?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, right.
There
Okay,
you go.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it wrong. Right. Okay, I was going to say that's the entire script, that one, and I didn't write it. So,
No, no.
right.
I just basically took the Rock Pro version and just modified it so that it would work with the Honeycomb. So
Okay. Cool.
it's fairly similar. Probably don't even need to have the last stanza, the SD image installed a tree, because I tested it on an SD card too, as well as USB, and it'll boot the installer. So you'll see that like the difference there is it says USB image instead of SD.
So what should this? I can't remember what this looks like.
I just stole that out of the SD cards build file and added if you look at the file name for the asset, it's USB image instead of SD. So
Oh,
yeah, which isn't necessary anymore now that I figured out something else.
oh, okay. Shall I delete this function then? Or,
Yeah, you can.
where does it go though? Where does the actual image go?
It goes into the installer directory, one directory below. So a platform, bootware, and an installer. At the very top of the file, it shows where all the files are put. So you see the out variable, which I commented out because it does it already in the other script.
Okay.
Yeah. That was just left over from me trying to keep it separate.
Okay. I'm just going to have a look at what the oh. So this is SD card build functions, isn't
Yeah. A lot of it's commented out, or
yeah,
for stuff that, yeah.
Most of it is. Is that actually a function name? That one at the bottom?
Yeah, it is in the bottom of the SD cards, that build script. And
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was just a hack I did because I was trying to rename it and I didn't really want to do anything extra. I copied and pasted that part for sure.
Okay.
There's no U-boot.
Oh yeah. Thanks. I wonder it's not in there.
Yeah, if you look at the very bottom of this before it installs the, there you go. It's right there. Yeah. All I did was change SD image to USB image, but.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm following you. Oh, right. Okay. But surely you need this though, don't you? Because otherwise it's not going to.
No, it should work with the SD image now, because I have my firmware in SPI flash now. So.
Ah, right. I remember you saying on IRC. Right. Okay. So you can use. Oh, Okay.
Yeah, because before I had the firmware for from SolidRun on an SD card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. In that case, I'll just comment this out.
Yeah,
Won't remove it. Okay.
Yeah, but everything else is fairly similar to like the Rock Pro, except for the grub stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have commented stuff better, but it's okay.
Yeah, I usually like to comment things like that out because it's useful to keep them in the future. Right.
Yeah.
So that's all okay, is it?
Yeah, and the only other thing I changed was the grub install line and the instead of SF disk, I used parted so that I could support the GPT partition table, which SF disk doesn't do. So.
Okay.
It only does MS-DOS partition tables.
Okay.
The rest is like fairly similar to what was in the other file. So.
What's the what do we do with that? Don't you need to? How are you? Oh, of course not, because you're using grub. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right then.
Yeah.
There's a few straight
see.
spaces around here.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that's there. You said there's something else I need, isn't there?
The grub file. So grub.cfg. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah, that's it. After that. Put that in the same directory. Yeah. There you go. It's very basic, but it boots the installer. All that does is the build script copies that into boot/grub. So it
Okay.
functions fairly similar to the syslinux file. You don't even need to run grub make config. It just kind of works. Yeah. That part's still being worked on. I have to figure out how to use UUIDs for the storage.
So this is booting. Okay. Where does so this is obviously here. This section here is the kernel command line.
Yeah.
Um,
Those two, the bypass and the pass through, are required because of a bug on the HoneyComb.
Okay. How does the operating system initial RAM disk know where the OS is stored? Oh, that. Oh no, that's boot.
Yeah. That's just the installer, so it boots into RAM. But yeah, and then when that's the part I'm working on is trying to figure out how to automate the installation of grub and have a config file that picks up everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, just the installer works out of the box. There's some manual stuff you have to do to install grub after the installation's finished. So.
Okay. Oh right. Okay. So we don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking how. So I'm casting in my mind back how we do X Linux. So at the moment, where is it? So that's in platform. So that's right. So we've got generic X Linux config. The
Mhm.
default is the installer, and then
Yeah, if there's a way to boot it with syslinux, that'd be great. But I was just trying to go with what Upstream does. So, yeah.
Can't you get it to boot U-boot? Like on the Raspberry Pi.
I did put the U-boot stuff on the server too that I had. It just
Okay.
I think it's because the RAM disk is too large. So.
Oh yeah, I remember you looked into it already, didn't you?
Yeah.
So. Okay.
U-boot works. It just doesn't like the RAM disk size. So I have to figure that out someday. But
I think how does it know? I'm just trying to think where it switches the there it is. That's where it does it here. So this is the script here that's responsible for switching basically for adjusting the X Linux config within the installer.
yeah.
Set partition script. Okay. Well, obviously you won't be using this one for U-boot.
So this is the firmware. You boot up and then hit escape and this will pop up. And what I do, I had the SD card has the installer already. So I just go here and boot it from there. Well, the part that people have to do in the beginning is go to here, boot from a file, and let's see. Yeah, that's it. And this looks for the grub config file. There we go. Oh, it's not working. Oh, it's not working now for some reason. I don't know why.
What was this supposed to do though? Was this supposed to be flashing
It just pulls up a grub boot prompt, and
Okay.
yeah, I don't know why it's not working now. It's very frustrating.
So this the boot manager, is this the EFI firmware that you did?
It is, yes,
Okay.
it is. So it just loads it up. Kind of screwy with the serial console, but hit escape, and there you go. Here we go. The thumb drive has it on it. See?
Okay. So, all right. So where's the what storage are you going to be using to house the OS? Is that currently
You can use USB or SD, so people have options.
okay?
Yeah. If you really want to do, you could use the eMMC too. But I'm not going to do that till it's a stable release at all. But it takes a minute for it to load it off the thumb drive because my thumb drive's a USB 1.1.
Oh right, okay. That then.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it goes. It's booting the installer now.
Okay, so your /boot partition is currently on the USB thumb drive.
Yes. Yeah.
So if I wanted to put a PCI card, a PCIe SATA card in there with the OS on it, how I'm trying to figure out, like, would you end up with quite a fragmented?
Well, right now I have everything. It's on an SSD. Let me show you the installer first.
It's so loud.
Yeah, no, I haven't really thought about how to explain it to somebody yet.
No, all right.
There we go. But there's an SSD that's like 120 gigs. I have it housing the system, the operating system, and then there's a few other SATA ports where I just have like a RAID and a backup directory or drive. And my PCI slot has a video card, so. It's booting into the installer.
Oh, did you have any more? I thought at one point you said you'd got a newer version of the kernel module loader script for the Honeycomb.
No, I'm still using the same one I gave you last year. It works fine.
Okay.
See?
Oh, all right.
And so here, it's my RAID. This is the system, the operating system that's installed already. And the SD card, or the USB stick right there, so.
Okay.
It actually does recognize the SD card, it just wouldn't boot for some reason. So, I don't know. It's pretty straightforward once you see it.
Okay.
I don't know, what kind of questions you got? I'm gonna boot into the system.
Just thinking, really, it's just more.
It's different than what we've been doing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the installed system. I have UUIDs instead because I have like 4 or 5 disks on it, so. But like if you took an M2 NVMe, I don't think you would need to have the UUIDs for each disk. It would just boot the NVMe just fine. And you could use labels for everything else.
Okay. I don't know really that much about Grub. I've only got it on a couple of systems, so
Yeah.
I guess really my question is what's the layout going to look like? What's a documentable? What could good look like, or useful look like? In other words, can you, like in the same way as on the Pinebook Pro, here's go and get this NVMe, put it, configure it like this, and it will work. What's a good what's a good sort of installation profile look like that's maintainable and useful? And
Well, first install, I'd put the firmware on an SD card, and then I would put the installer on the thumb drive, which is how I've been doing it like all this time, and have the first install be just the SPI flash, and then after that, you can just boot from the thumb drive again without the SD card. And then when you install everything, it can be booted directly from a SSD or a SATA drive. So.
okay,
Yeah.
Right. What would go on the USB thumb drive? Just the installer.
Yeah, the installer, and you could probably include the firmware too. Here's the installer I have, and then Grub is in there. And
what's it? Okay, so what's in your /boot? Okay, yeah, what's in the /boot partition?
there's no syslinux config, and EFI is mounted there.
Mm-hmm.
And Grub is. There's a different Grub config I'm using that I've been tweaking for the installed system. That's what I use to boot it right now.
Okay. So you're not converting the boot partition in the installer into the boot partition, or well, yeah, it's not called the boot partition in the installer, but the partition that the installer lives on, that it boots from, you're not converting that into /boot for the OS like it does on the other hardware.
No. Literally, once the firmware loads Grub, you can treat the storage just like you would on x86. And Grub will find the operating system on your on whatever SATA drive you pick or whatever. And so, like this right here, that's the root disk.
Okay.
You can see.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
you probably wouldn't need to use UUIDs if you had just one drive. It wouldn't matter. You could just use the labeling that we already had.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could just use labeling anyway, as long as you haven't got duplicated labels, because that's all we could use UUID in the setups for the other hardware models, but I chose labels.
Yeah.
So
And
as long as they're
so
not duplicated.
I use labels on the installer. You can see right here,
Yeah.
Slack EFI and Slack boot.
Yeah.
And it works fine. But that's as far as I've gotten as far as finishing it up. So
Okay.
I
So
think it's in a good spot. It just needs a little bit more work. I don't know.
okay. All right. So you can put the installer on a thumb drive, boot a USB thumb drive, boot the installer off the USB thumb drive, install it onto whatever you want, as in, well,
Yeah.
so
The HoneyComb has 4 SATA ports and an M2 slot. And right
okay.
now I'm running it only on SATA.
Okay.
But the problem I kept running into after installing was that all the drives come up with a different block device. They don't stay at the same block devices, so you have to use a UUID or a label.
Yeah. That was what I had on the Raspberry Pi. That's why I introduced labels in the first
Yeah,
place. I'm glad I
yeah.
did actually, because it ended up being um, a good thing anyway. Um,
Like look at the
okay, so
FS trap.
oh yeah, nice. So on the Honeycomb, you're going to boot once you've installed the firmware. That gives that the firmware provides you that boot console menu that you had,
Yeah, yeah.
and then how does that get configured? How does that know? Well, yeah, how do you configure that to boot Grub? How
So here I'll show. I will
how does
reboot
it
and show.
know?
So let's say you've got the system installed and the firmware is in SPI flash. Uh, um, I'll show you. It should just pick up the boot partition on the SATA drive. Whereas like with the installer, it'll find it on the thumb drive. But you have to tell it where to find it. So I'll show you.
Okay. So when it initially, but yeah, so when it initially boots, if you had the thumb drive in there, you just have to. That's what you were saying before. You have to interrupt it or something, don't you? And
Yeah, you interrupt it and you just tell it to boot from a file, and you
uh,
select the grub EFI file. So
okay,
um, and you do that from there, the maintenance manager. Yeah, and so we have a couple of them, because this is the installed one. This is my thumb drive. You see the USB right there.
oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, right. So ordinarily in the instructions, we'd say disk, unplug this USB installer image it's done with. So you wouldn't have
Exactly.
that once you'd, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Uh,
you just.
what's the other Slack SLK EFI? Is that what you actually boot? Is that what's actually on the OS as well, on one of the OS partitions?
I think that's the SD card.
Okay. So what do you actually need the SD card for in the end?
You needed to do the initial install because
Oh, just to flash the firmware.
yeah, just to flash the SPI.
Oh, so you could. Oh, I see. So you could actually. Okay. So once everything has been installed and set up, you could actually. You don't need a USB thumb drive. You don't need an SD card either. You can boot directly off of the SATA drive.
Yes,
Is that what you're
exactly.
saying?
And SPI flash, and then this boot manager's in SPI flash right now.
Perfect.
So yeah,
Nice.
and you can see there's an eMMC option too to boot. So
I'm
you
liking
can put
this.
that
I'm
on.
liking this, Brent. This is better than U-boot, mate.
I know. That's why I was like, I don't want U-boot. Get rid of it. Trash it.
U-boot's just easier because it's already been done.
Yeah, and then like when you boot the installer, say you just have an SD card. This is on an SD card. You just boot your thumb drive, whatever it's called. Mine is a Kingston. Oh no, SanDisk Cruiser, and it just finds the installer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and that's using labels because I got around to fixing that part.
Okay.
And I have a way to go back to the firmware, But
Okay. Cool.
and I don't know if you want this, but I was working also on building the firmware on Slackware rather than just downloading it from the vendor. But
Yeah, when if you have it working, I suppose. Yeah, I
yeah,
can include. Might as well put it there.
yeah.
But,
Instead of just like keeping these files forever, you can be able to rebuild it yourself with the source.
yeah, I can just keep it wherever I put the other firmware stuff.
But there's all this other stuff here. I don't know what any of it does yet.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty straightforward once you see it. But I wouldn't even look at the U-boot stuff if you um
No, don't look at it. There's no point. Just
yeah,
use
this
Grub.
is what the vendor uses, and so I'm like, okay, just use
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's no point in going against
Yeah, like
extremely.
Debian and Ubuntu and Gentoo, they all use this firmware instead of
Yeah.
U-boot at some point. And then once they get U-boot working, then they use that. But I don't foresee it working on here unless without a lot of extra work.
No, there's no point. Um, yeah, no, you can give me the uh, just yeah. If you've got the firmware build script working already, I can drop it into the SRC directory where the ATF.build is. Although I might move that around actually, because otherwise it's going to get cluttered. But I haven't updated the ARM trusted firmware for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you really need to either. It seems to work fine as it is.
Yeah. What's funny is for the Honeycomb, the trusted firmware builds natively.
Oh right.
You don't need to cross compile it with the Honeycomb. But only for the Honeycomb, not necessarily for other things. So, there's something wrong with it.
Oh, is that what it's called? Is it actually ARM trusted firmware that you're building there? Is it from the same repo as the one that we've got for the RK3399?
No, it's not. They have like a completely different version from a different place. It's like a fork. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, okay. It doesn't matter. Oh, okay.
It,
That's fine.
it's like, yeah, I don't know. They had like a build machine and stuff that was like 128 cores. Maybe I'd work on it, but
How much RAM's on this thing?
it has 32 gigs.
That's obscene.
It goes up to 64 gigs. And I was like, yeah, I don't need that yet.
I do.
See,
I bet you that would build QT. How many cores does it have?
it has 16.
Sick. I bet you that builds QT in no time.
Yeah.
Actually, I started having to build CLang, LLVM natively at the moment.
Yeah, when it
Takes it.
compresses the installer, it takes like maybe 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, I need to contact Solid Run and get one of these.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Um,
It's got
yeah.
like
All
a
right. Well,
bunch.
so what are you going to tackle? You got to. So there's a couple of things you need to tackle, isn't there? There's the writing of the firmware into the SPI flash, and then
Yeah,
getting the kernel, getting the grub config up and running. What with the grub
this is the
config?
thing that I'm working on now. Here is this firmware, and this is what they give you. Some like so. I don't know. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I've seen some of their code on the website before, and I struggle to understand what it did.
Yeah.
It's just I
Right
must.
now, I have a build failure when you try to build the Core EDK2 firmware, which is what everybody uses for ARM.
Oh,
It was some kind of compile bug, but
right.
uh,
Okay. Uh, in the installer, you've got do you know where to look for the post installation stuff? Because that's probably where you'd put it, I think. Because there's a kind of there's a mechanism I added to the installer to run a bunch of post install scripts. So you can probably I think you can just drop them in actually. Where is it?
uh, yeah, it's in the kernel directory.
Is this the
Uh,
private? Oh yeah, that's
yeah, it
right.
is a private. Yeah,
If you go to no, that's the kernel directory. You need to go into the source. Oh, sorry, the installer. Not yeah. You need to go into source installer, and then if you go into
yeah,
the ARM directory, there's a let me
yeah.
just put stuff in. It's in the post install scripts. If you have a look at those, they should have enough information at the head of the file to tell you where they get called from.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything will do really. Where does it get called from? So in other words, I don't know if you just need to create a
So from
file.
here,
Oh, is that okay?
yeah,
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, there you go. So that's this script is called from there, and it does that. Yeah. So yeah, you can literally just get a script there and just drop it in. So
yeah, for grub. Yeah,
um, yeah. So basically, all we need to do is just configure the grub config, I suppose,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, use the labels. Oh, are you going to? Ooh, how? What? Oh, okay. The moment you've got UUIDs. So the labels, yeah. I'm just thinking, how is it going to be labeled?
I was thinking Slack EFI since it's an EFI directory and just keep Slack boot. I mean,
Hmm.
because the Rock Pro just has just Slack boot, right?
No, it has SLK root where the root file system is, and then
Oh yeah,
SLK
that's true.
streams.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. I can probably play with it. I'll figure something out. The main thing is now I have it booting and I can install it easily. Instead of having to make a thumb drive manually every time I need to tweak something.
Hmm. It sounds to me though, you actually don't need a slash boot partition on this anyway, right? You don't need a dedicated partition for this, I don't think.
No, it just goes on to the SATA drive.
Yeah, onto the root file system.
Yeah, I see. See,
Um,
it showed up as SDA1 now instead of
uh,
SDC.
right, mount point slash boot slash e. Oh, but you have got a slash boot partition, though, or is that
Yeah,
just
it's on the SATA drive, yeah.
do you? Okay, because I'm just thinking you could. Okay, so all right, so let's say if you want to keep the slash boot partition, you can call that SLK EFI because that's where grub is, right?
Yeah.
and then grub, and then the root partition which you've got as SDA4 can be labeled SLK root.
Yep.
But because then it's more or less similar to the other to the existing hardware
You
models.
can
Apart
see
from
here I have this, but
yeah,
I haven't gotten around to fixing that part yet.
okay,
After the install's done.
yeah. And did you call it SLK EFI because that's what it is in Slackware, or is it just something you made up?
I just made it up so I could have a way to refer to it.
Just call it SLK boot then, because
Yeah,
then it's in line with everything else.
yeah. And just put everything. Well, this is a FAT32 file system, and this is
Ah.
yeah, it has to be FAT32 for EFI.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's
okay.
basic.
Ah, right.
Yeah, see, that was my dilemma, trying to figure out what
Ah,
to.
this is that can take quite a bit of time. Is just figuring this stuff out. Yeah.
Automating it is the issue, because
That's
before I could just make a thumb drive and it would boot and install, but
okay. But okay, hang on though. All right. But if you think about it though, you don't actually need SDA2, right? In there because yeah, it's the superfluous. All you really need is /boot/EFI and that would
yeah,
be SDA1, and you can label that as SLK EFI.
yeah, that's true.
I don't see the point in having a /boot partition for no reason. It's
Oh,
only got
okay.
one on the RK3399 and the, what you call it, Raspberry Pi because of the way we've done the installer, but you're doing it differently. So unless you
Yeah, I
want to
could probably
change,
unmount that and just copy it to the root partition and lay
yeah,
it and
yeah, that's what I would do. You don't need a separate partition for that.
yeah.
I'm just trying to think how you're going to get the labeling working. I'm just going to check what it is, what code it is that actually does that. I think it's is it ARM slack set partitions or something like that? Root. Yeah, it is. It is. But okay. Right. Yeah, if you look at ARM slack set partitions, I'm just looking through it on here. I'm just trying to see whether it's sort of tied to the ext Linux config or whether it could.
It is. That's the first thing it says. But it would be easy just to add like an if statement for the honeycomb and I don't know.
Uh, well,
Yeah. I don't see a part where it just focuses on one.
well, it does the labeling. So you've got ARM slack root device equals this. It's okay root. Ah, okay. It scans for SLK, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to do that. MMC set native.
Yeah, there we go. MMC dev.
Yeah, but that only just sets the that only just sets a variable containing the device address of the MMC
Yeah.
device where the boot partition is. But so it configures U-boot. Okay.
What was I gonna look for? She says I just blinked.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's coming together. It's just figuring out how the pieces all fit together for the least amount of maintenance work later on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. The best. Okay. Yeah. Let's do this in steps because I mean I wrote all this code anyway, so I can change it.
Yeah.
The what I would do is I would get the maybe just do this maybe just the I don't know what the easiest one is first actually, but I'd certainly replace get rid of that slash boot partition and just have the EFI partition on the SATA. Oh, but the user's gonna have to create that, aren't they?
Um,
But that's okay, I guess. Yeah, you just have to.
yeah,
So
if I can tell Grub to look for a label, I mean, it'll find it and boot it. So,
no, I was just thinking. So if you've let's say you've flashed the boot firmware into the SPI flash. You've booted the installer off the USB thumb drive. You've got a completely empty SATA drive or SSD on a SATA port. So you're in the instructions. You're going to have to create a few hundred megs FAT32 partition. That is labeled SLK EFI.
Yeah. So scratch that. I don't know if you can label live partitions, but I don't think I want to try.
Yeah, you just do is it? You just do fat label. I think it is. Although I've got because all the commands for it are in the. It's called. Oh no! I don't label fat file systems.
You can, but it can't have like capital letters. It always complains.
No, it does, but it works anyway. It's fine.
Yeah.
SLK HW. Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, you can because the Raspberry Pi has SLK in caps HWM_BW. It works fine. The commands to do it are in the SD cards build script for the Raspberry Pi. It labels them in there. So you'd have to create a. Yeah, I think it's just something the users have to do. You just have to put it in the instructions that you need to create an EFI partition.
Yeah.
And then you have to configure in the instructions. You'd have to say you have to mount it as /boot/EFI. I think, and then yeah. Okay, well we'll have to figure it out. It's been quite
right now I'm doing that with parted. It's pretty quick. 3 lines can make it. Without the boot, it can be 2 lines. This is the SD card image.
Okay.
Just label them better.
Okay. Oh right, yeah. I could change that here, couldn't I?
Yeah, that's an easy fix. And then you would just have to drop all this extra stuff with the mount point 1 and mount point 2 type of thing.
Yeah. Well, why didn't you change that and then you can give me a new version of the file and I'll drop it in afterwards. I'll leave the one you've given me for the time being. I'm just trying to think whether I'm just thinking whether whether we could automate any of this, but I'm not really sure. Don't think so.
You mean from the
installer? Oh, I mean from the installer, so that you have a. But no, I don't think so. I don't think that.
Well, I think x86 Pat has it just using Elilo, but there's a way you can just install Grub pretty easily. So, which is what I do.
Oh, I meant because you still need to create this partition, right?
Yeah, the EFI
partition. That's what I meant. So, but no, I think it'll just have to be documented because you can't really I mean, you could, I suppose, automate it, but you'd have to. It involves sanity checking, loads of stuff that people don't destroy the wrong thing.
Yeah, right.
So just thinking because the way that it's done with the other models is that it comes pre-configured on the SD card image and it just gets converted in the installer. Yeah. But that's fine. We'll figure it out. It's not overly complicated. And then it's just a case of how does the installer know how to so that the installer labels the root partition appropriately. think.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of stuff to look into, but I think it'll be pretty easy to do later.
Yeah, it won't be difficult. I might have to change the. Actually, yeah, maybe I might have to change some of the code and set partitions to try and handle helper scripts or do some, because I don't really want to hard code.
I don't want to hard code the grub config file. I want to get that working.
Yeah. Oh no, well, oh yeah, you need to work out how to do the grub config as well.
Yeah,
but that won't
what
be
I mean.
difficult.
Yeah.
Just make it. The thing is, where's the grub config file? Oh, I've got it, haven't I? Because really, you can just. Okay, well, hang on. So on the installer, it's going to boot. The installer itself will have a hard-coded grub config file, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to worry about that anyway. It just needs to work, like you have here. That's it. It's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
this is what I have for the. Oh no. Oh, I'm on my x86. That's why. That's what the installed system uses. So just rename that, changes to labels.
Yeah.
This label. And really the part that's important is this, because it won't boot without those settings. This is not really needed unless you have an AMD GPU.
Okay, that's fine.
But it's fairly simple. I mean, that's what I was trying to aim towards. So
yeah.
there's not a lot to remember.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't. I mean, yeah. Well, I don't even think you'd need to necessarily change anything there, actually. Because assuming, yeah, we'll make it so that the root partition is SLK root like everything else. We'll figure out how to make it automatically label that, and then that's it, really. I don't think you even need to change this at all, really, because you just put yeah. So that would be SL. Well, actually, what does that do? The search thing. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be SLK.
It is, because this is the boot partition it's finding it on. And then after it boots the root partition here.
Yeah, but that's.
Here.
Yeah, but if you take, if you only have a single partition, so if you don't have a/boot partition, but you just have a FAT32 or whatever it's called, VFAT partition.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I got.
So then it's actually just SLK root,
and then it would have to be changed to.
It would have to be /boot/. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, you're right.
Cool.
Well, a lot of work.
It is quite a bit of work. But the good thing about having it with Grub is that at least it's an extra bootloader that is in use in the wild.
Yeah.
We just need to figure out how to
make it find the labels.
Yeah, I'll just have to look at the code again.
I thought about just
device.
See, this is all the config files for Grub when it generates it, and like this is an empty one. So what I was doing is concatenating it into the end of this file, and then when you run Grub, it'll work just the same way. It'll just be hard-coded in the config files. But I'd like it to pick it all up automatically like x86. So that's the part I have to remember, and I don't know how to do that yet.
Wouldn't you just, well, I don't know, but wouldn't you just, in the post-installation scripts in the installer, just root into the into /mnt where the OS is installed and just run that config there? Because then it would have it would /etc/grub would be what's the word? Well, grub would find it in the right place. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Like that's auto-generated in the.
Yes, all the paths would be absolute paths, and it would work if you routed into the environment.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's what I do. I root and I install it, and then I put my custom config file in boot/grub. I don't really run grub make config right now, so.
Oh. Well, do you not need? Do you actually need to? Does grub need these things? These extra?
You don't need to run grub make config. You can just copy that config file in and edit it the same way we do with the syslinux config.
Oh, but this is what I mean. Like, you're not going to have. So the thing is, though, I don't think you're going to have to change that grub config file at all.
I know. That's all I was wondering.
You're not going to have to. We don't need to run grub.
Yeah.
As long as grub
can find the config file.
But hold on. But doesn't grub deposit something in /boot/grub, or is it just the config file? Is it?
Yeah, it's config file generated from these. But if I just put yeah.
But where's the grub actual software? Where does that get loaded from?
That's installed in the master boot record, I think. And it looks for. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just that. Oh, so you okay? So you would actually need to run grub though in order for it to install it to the MBR.
Yeah, you just run.
Okay. Right. Yeah, because grub isn't like Lilo. You don't have to redeploy the binary into the master boot record every time you change the config. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, this is what I have it running.
Okay.
To install it, and that's automated. All that's automated for the thumb drive. So really, that's what you do at the end of the install is you root and count, and then you just run that. So.
Oh right, okay. Oh okay. Then fine. Then that's basically all you need to do. You just copy the So okay. Well, so if you look in the way you do this is if you look in the installer, you'll find there's if you go back to the where is it gone? Is it in /post? Oh, that's where you were, wasn't it? Oh yeah, there you go. If you go into the HWM configure platform directory and then go into it's like a million, it's like several directories deep actually. But inside that, you've got there's loads of stuff in there. Well, there's not loads, there's one file actually. Yeah, so if you go, keep going. Go into helper.scr.
Yeah, I did see this yesterday.
So it's actually a file, not a directory, that one. So I don't know what that does actually. I think it's something to do with the Pinebook Pro. It configures something or other. Oh yeah. So you could do there you go. So you could do something like that to configure. So you can store the grub config inside of the user share directory, which is what I think that's where we put them anyway. Because we put the what do you call it? Is it assets and assets?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. So the assets. So for example, the assets, we've got that ALSA sound config file stored in the installer. So you can put your grub file in there when you finish that. So you can pass that. So probably just make a note of this actually, because otherwise we'd have to listen to the podcast again or just remember it.
No, I know what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. So you could give me that. So you make yourself your grub file. I can stick it in the assets directory in the installer. Then you've got that, and then all you need to do is create one of the post installation scripts in which just runs the grub install config thing inside a chroot. In fact, you might not even need to do a chroot, although it probably might be best. And then that would, it's just a case of which order the thing's running at that point.
It just needs to run last, really.
Well, no, I mean um, the HWM configure scripts would need to run first because it would need to copy the grub config first. I just need to
Yeah,
check which order it is, but that's just an ordering thing. It's not a big deal.
and then just said replace the labels and
Well, you probably wouldn't need to set to replace anything because you're just going to have a hard-coded SLK root label, right?
yeah,
The only reason why the X Linux stuff runs is because it has to switch out, or it has to delete the installer section from the X Linux config menu. That's the only reason it does that.
okay.
So you don't need to do any of that stuff. You just need to copy the yeah. But yeah, we can work that one out. I can easily change the code if I need to make it work. And then it's really just about how do we do the labeling, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I think
This looks
it'll.
good, this honeycomb. I bet I'll be able to just build, probably reduce my build times by about 70%.
Yeah, right. it's there's so many processors in HTOP that it deforms the screen.
Oh yeah, I see. God. Yeah, I need one of those.
Yeah,
So
I have like all crap running on it. I've got a headless. Oh, maybe not. I rebooted. I had a headless VNC server running and stuff, and it still just doesn't have any trouble with all this stuff on it. It's really just like having an x86, but as a different architecture, and it just runs the same. I don't know.
yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just running AR64 instead. I mean, you can't really tell. You can't tell the difference, can you? There really isn't any.
No, I can build a bunch of stuff, and
I
I
mean, yeah,
don't
the
need.
level that you're doing here. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you were coding for it, it'd be different, but
Yeah,
they're not a huge amount.
I have containers and all the crap in my RAID array.
Right, I'm just going to remove. So, okay, I'm just going to comment out at the moment from the uboot.build the honeycomb thing. Just comment those out, those two lines. And then once you've changed the script, just give me another one, and I'll to remove the boot partition and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll pop the other one in because I'm going to build a kernel soon. Yeah, how to build the latest kernel. Well, I don't need to actually, but I will at some point.
My music. It's just random shit. Pictures. I don't know.
Right, so it looks like it's coming on nicely here. There's still quite a bit to go, but it looks good. It looks good.
Turn off the helicopter fan eventually too.
Yeah. Okay. What do you reckon? Have you got somewhere? Have you got a starting point, a preferred starting point?
For what?
For this, are you going to tackle the SPI flashing first, or?
The SPI flashing is going to take a lot of reboots and reinstalls. So I think I want to try and get everything else working. Because right now it'll boot the installer, it'll run off the SD card and the thumb drive. So I figure that works for now. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, you're doing it, so.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
It just requires a lot of reboots, and if I do other things like fix the grub installer and a VM type of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, I would just get what I would do is I get the installer, so that it has a single so that it doesn't need actually all you really do, so on the installer image is just delete that boot partition and just make a single EFI one, because the other just so that's cleaned up.
yeah.
And then we should figure out how to just start documenting how users would go about install, the first installations or the first steps in the installation, which would be, once you install the installer, which would be creating that EFI partition, and then yeah, in fact,
It'll simplify a lot if I just use a Slack EFI and then just Slack boot and be done with it. Instead of having a separate Slack root, Slack boot, Slack EFI.
you'll only need Slack EFI and Slack root. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need. So it's just a case of then I mean, to be honest, I'd probably just make it so that the in the instructions the user has to label when they go to create the file system, they label it with the correct label initially, so it's labeled SLK EFI. I don't think it's worth trying to automate detection of this or anything like that. It's just not.
No.
It's just not worth it, because you can sometimes just get it wrong, and it would find something other than the Slackware stuff and break something that was unexpected. It's just not worth trying to.
Well, I mean, this is the issue for me because I have so many.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass, and I have that's confusing, and so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's what I would do. So I would do that. Then we don't need to worry about labeling that at all. Although we could put in the installer that if we can't find an SLK EFI, then hey, error out, you need to go make one. That's a good sanity check.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the labeling, let me just look at that again. Actually, I think it's coming to me. I had a flash of inspiration. When you have flashes of inspiration, and it's like
Yeah. Like that eureka moment where I decided to read the man page for SF Disk.
No, this was just a flash of memory because I remember how I wrote the script now. It's actually quite funny looking back at this because it kind of makes me realise what it would be like, or at least in part, what it would be like for someone who's like a hardware model custodian looking at this for the first time. At least I'm looking at it going, oh yeah, I remember writing that now. Oh yeah, that's what I did. Oh yeah.
If I had more time previously, I probably would have had it done in a few months, but it's just so much work trying to figure out all the details.
Yeah, that's well, it was like that when I did the figured out how to structure the Raspberry Pi stuff that you gave me. Trying to figure out what to name it and where to, even if it sounds really simple, where to put it in the file system. It actually does make a difference because you can end up having loads of mount points for unnecessary mount points and things that just the lack of consistency in other areas of the operating system and stuff like that. So you do have to think it through in advance, otherwise you end up having to undo things, or you end up with a pretty crappy looking. Let me just see if I can figure this out. Where is it?
Oh my god.
Oh, there it is. Arm slash set partitions. Let's see if I can find this. It can't be that complicated.
It's not. It's now that because I've looked at all these files yesterday, and I'm like, what the heck? Why didn't I do this earlier? The labeling and set of the UIDs, and yesterday was a pain in the ass because I reinstalled it. Couldn't find the right drive, and
so hold on. I don't need. Actually, I think that this labeling, the Slack the ARM Slack set partition script, I think it might actually label your device anyway. Because it takes the
it labeled root. Yeah,
it does. Oh well, it's already done then. We don't do anything.
Yeah,
it's sensible enough to keep out of things that it doesn't know about and not error out. But it also will it will label the partition the root partition correctly. Yeah, we shouldn't have to touch it at all. I don't think. So
other than labeling boot EFI as Slack boot. Forget it. Like this is how it's labeled right now, which is wrong. So
that's fine. Yeah, you need to change that. But other than that, it's fine because all this other code that changes the U-boot or the X Linux config is actually matched under it. It's under the condition that it's actually found an appropriate boot partition with the X Linux stuff on it. And if it doesn't do anything. So it's not going to break at all. Brilliant.
Well,
I think it's already done, Brent. So basically, you need to just change a couple of lines in a script.
and
The
the build
users are going to have to create their own EFI FAT32 partition with the right label. And we can just put a script in the installer that just does a sanity check on it. You know, if you're running under a honeycomb, I can't find the EFI partition, go and make it. Which is easy enough. We'll do that later.
I think the installer already does that though. It finds it if the partition's made, it'll look for the partition, and if it can't find it and you have a GPT partition table, it'll tell you to go create one and exit the installer. It already does that. So basically, all that has to happen is when the person partitions their drive before installing, is to make the EFI partition. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Right. I think we've done quite a bit on this one. So Brent, I've got enough to call it a day. But I think we've moved ahead with this.
Yes.
So
Very
yeah,
good.
once you've updated that config file, the SD card bootloader, the installer script, the drop-in file, just stick it on armed, and I'll grab it off there and put it in there, and until you'll have that with the next version. Is it safe for me to actually build these? Well, actually, there's no point in me building them at the moment, is there?
No, it is safe though. They run fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want to distribute those. It doesn't make any sense yet.
Yeah.
But I can leave them in. At least you've got them, and you can.
Yeah, and the kernel module loader script works just fine too. Might have to add something later for power saving and maybe something for the M2 slot, but that's it. Everything else, for the majority of people, it should work just fine so far.
All right, Brent. Listen, have a good weekend. It was good to talk to you after all this time.
Yeah, been a while.
All right, and I'll have to reach out to SolidWare and get one of these things at some point soon.
Okay, cool.
All right, man. I'll speak to you later. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.